From the Oklahoma Newsroom, I'm Nuria Martinez-Keel. I'm here with the Superintendent Sean McDaniel from Oklahoma City Public Schools. Good to have you here, Sean.
Nuria, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Now, we're here today to talk about upcoming projects at Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast. For those who aren't familiar, Northeast Academy closed this summer and Classen SAS expanded its high school into the Northeast Academy building. A lawsuit that disputed the renaming of that school was dropped in federal court 2 weeks ago, and so now that it's no longer in litigation, the district is a little bit more free to talk about this publicly. So now we're here to discuss some of that situation today. So my first question for you, Sean, is from your perspective, what part of this whole situation, this whole conflict, do you think has been the most misunderstood?
Well, first of all, Nuria, thank you for having me. I always love to talk about Oklahoma City Public Schools and the kids and teachers and families. So, you know, the difficulty over the last several weeks has been that we have not been able to clarify much of the story that is being told about Classen SAS High School at Northeast, about how we have intended from day one to honor the history and the legacy of Northeast High School and NEA both. So the frustration has been, while we've been hearing this narrative out there that has been full of inaccurate statements, we've not been able to clarify. So I think now we're excited about not just the opportunity to clarify what we believe has been missing from the story, but also to talk about all of the exciting things that are underway, that you know, not the least of which is the excitement that our kids in the building feel right now. You know, we've had our first football game ever at Classen SAS High School at Northeast. They were unsuccessful, but we've got kids on that team that last year went to NEA, went to Classen High School, and they're now a team shooting for the same goals. So there's a lot of excitement in the building. Kids who came from different backgrounds a year ago who are now in the same school, in the same classrooms, being taught by the same teachers. So many exciting things that are going on, both there and then across the district, that really we've not been able to do an adequate job of talking about because of this other issue with Classen and Northeast and the renaming. So that has been certainly a frustration.
Right, so when you talk about some of the inaccuracies that you've heard in the discourse, what are some things that come to mind for you and that you would like to maybe clear the air about?
No, thank you. It's a great question. You know, we have been made aware over the last several weeks that different individuals who are very passionate about Northeast High School and Northeast Academy and the name have gone on the news media, on television. They've gone on open mic radio shows. They've talked from the Capitol in front of an audience. And they have suggested things like, when we brought Classen over and allowed the kids from Northeast Academy to stay, we only kept 2 teachers from Northeast Academy, that's just false. The number is that we kept 5 teachers, we kept an assistant principal, and we kept nearly the entire front office staff from Northeast Academy. And so to say that we only kept 2 teachers is just wrong. Now we've heard tales in the public about a commitment I made and that the board made is when Classen High School at Northeast came over and occupied that building, that we committed as a district that those kids from Northeast Academy who wanted to stay in the health and sciences track would have the ability to do that. And so part of the narrative that is developed during litigation that we did not respond to was that we completely eliminated the health and sciences track, which is completely false. That health and sciences track remains. We actually hired additional staff for that program so that any student who chooses to continue on that track until they graduate can do so. So the list is fairly lengthy of what I would call misinformation. We were told that it was a shame that kids from Northeast Academy had already been elected to class officer positions for this year, and then we had stripped that away from them. when the fact of the matter is there had been no elections at all, and that every student at Classen had the opportunity to apply for and run for an office. And so, there are probably 8 or 9 things that I'm just listening to thinking, man, that's just not accurate. And so we appreciate the opportunity to provide some clarity from my point of view. Other things, we had some really neat concrete benches that over the years different classes at Northeast High School had donated to the school. And the narrative was that we had confiscated the benches and that we were going to sell them to whoever wanted to come and make an offer. The truth is that we had a group of parents coming in and community members to landscape in front of the building. We sent a crew over to gather up those benches, and they're in safekeeping. One of the images you'll see in a little bit is a project that is underway to rename that plaza area out in front of the school Viking Plaza, which is where those benches will go. You can see an image here. We'll also place a monument there and put in a bronze plate on the front of it a little bit of the history of Northeast High School and Northeast Academy, along with the benches. And we've got some community partners who are going to help us with the landscaping. So really an honor to the Vikings and Northeast High School and Northeast Academy. I could go on with the list. I think what's really more important for us now is as we clarify the narrative, it has to include this, that one of the things that's been said is we're trying to erase Northeast High School from the map. We're trying to eradicate every image, every instance or every memory of Northeast High School, Northeast Academy. We have 7 projects that we started a long time ago, before any litigation, because it's the right thing to do. Northeast High School, Northeast Academy has been a prominent fixture in our community for 83 years. And so from the very beginning, we had talked about a whole list of projects. What can we do in order to keep that reminder of the place and the role that Northeast High School has played over the years? So you see some images up on the side of the building. We intend to prominently place the word Northeast as a reminder that this is the old Northeast campus. In the signage, we want to, and full disclosure, the sign that sits there now, it gives more prominence to the word Classen than it does to Northeast, and so we're going to replace that and make that right. The school name is Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast. Here is a great image, and there was a story, part of the narrative that circulated, that we were going to cover this up.
This engraving right here.
Yeah, this engraving. Then also you see in the upper right there, as you walk in the main entrance, in the tile lays that Viking emblem logo with the word Vikings under it. We've already refurbished that. That will remain. And then we're going to refurbish that etching that's in the stone that says Northeast High School to kind of bring that out a little bit. The next one you see is an image of an alumni room. Many of our high schools across the city have a room similar to this where we will place trophies and pictures and memorabilia as a reminder. Another just an interesting side note, part of the narrative that has evolved was that there was video out there, this was posted on a social media account, of district officials gathering all of the old Northeast trophies, and there was video of us dumping them into a dumpster. I never saw the video, but out on social media, that was the narrative. The fact of the matter is that we did collect all the trophies, and they're in a room for safekeeping. During the renovation of that building, we did not want them to get destroyed, and many of those will take their place in that alumni room. So that's another example of a project that's underway. There are a couple more. One of them is here you see the entrance to our media center, and we want alumni from Northeast High School, Northeast Academy to help us select a name that would go on that plaque outside of the media center, an alumni, a faculty or staff member, somebody prominent in the community, that we will name that media center after.
And you were also planning something similar for a street
Yes,
on
yes.
the campus, correct?
And I don't know if we have an image of that, but yeah, there's a street that runs, right here it is, it runs directly through the campus. It connects 30th Street to 33rd Street. And at each end, we want to put up a street sign, a green street sign on a post, and it will name that street after a prominent, again, alumni member or faculty, staff member, somebody who has really contributed over the years. And those names will be brought to us by Northeast alumni. So lots of projects, lots of exciting things underway. I think maybe one of the most important things as we work toward honoring and remembering the legacy and the history and honoring the contributions is we're going to have a curriculum or an academic unit that we put in place this year that every student at Classen SAS High School at Northeast will go through. So it's a lesson plan that talks about the history of Northeast High School, the origins, the important figures through time, that transition from Northeast High School to Northeast Academy, and then beginning next year, every freshman who enters the school, either through a history class, through a leadership class, will have that same lesson prepared and delivered to them so that we can always remember and remind ourselves of the contributions of Northeast High School.
I know the school board had some questions on who gets to make decisions for these projects and who gets to put that curriculum together. I believe you mentioned at the school board meeting something about the district putting together committees.
Right.
What do you envision, how do you envision that working, and who gets to be on those committees?
Sure. So D08 is a school board policy that we use when we're talking about naming. It's the very policy we used when we changed the name of Greystone to John Marshall Middle School, when we changed Parmalee to Southeast Middle School, when we changed Northeast Academy to Classen SAS at Northeast. The very last section of the policy gives the discretion to the school board. In fact, the wording is, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, in unusual or appropriate circumstances, the board may develop its own steps to name a building or a facility or a part of a building. So we will rely on D08 as we put together these committees. Each committee, whether it's to name a media center or to name a street or to develop the plaza, each committee will be made up of membership that represents the Northeast part of our school district, alumni, maybe former or current faculty and staff members or students, because we want that history to be something that comes to us from those who have lived through that history. We expect to have, within the next couple of weeks, we'll have those committees in place. And not too much further down the road, we will be able to take names to our school board as recommendations for their approval.
And so if somebody were interested in being a part of that committee, how can they get in touch with the district?
We will very shortly be putting something out on our website. It's an application of sorts, and so they can let us know of their interest. They can reach out to me. A lot of different ways to do that, but be looking at our website and submit your name and your interest, and then we will notify you whether or not you will be able to serve on one of those committees.
Right, so it sounds like people in the Northeast community can have the opportunity to have a voice in the process going forward. Going back though, you have some Northeast alumni and people in that area who said that they felt left out of this process, that the district made decisions without getting their input first. Did they get a say in what happened with the school, and is there any part of this that maybe you would like to go back and do over again?
Let me start with the end of that question. There are always things that, looking back, when we debrief as a staff and a board, that we would like an opportunity to do it better. I think that's the nature of leadership. That's the nature of organizations. Is that we never arrive. We're never perfect, but we do spend a lot of time reflecting and thinking that, hey, next time, let's do things a little bit differently, a little bit better. However, from the day I stepped on board about 16 months ago up until today, we met in town hall type setting. We met 21 different times. We stayed until all hours. I stayed until the last question was asked. We got in front of over 10,000 people, face to face. They lined up and down the aisles at many of our high schools, and no question was off the table. This presentation was provided to our community in board meetings, in town hall settings, in small group meetings, and we answered a lot of questions and took in a lot of information. So could we do better? We could have done better. But my belief is that there were plenty of opportunities to weigh in, and people did. And that's not to say that there wasn't a population, a percentage of people who did not hear about this until after decisions were made. I think that's always the case. But as far as providing opportunity to speak and to let us know what your dissatisfaction was, what your ideas were, there were multiple opportunities to do that.
Mm-hmm. At a lot of Northeast alumni, part of the conflict is they support a combined name of
Right.
Northeast, Classen, SAS.
Right.
If the board were to take a vote on this, is that something that you would support as a combined name?
Sure. I mean, I know my role. I work for the Board of Education, and so we have procedures and protocols in place for just that scenario. Our policies dictate that the chair of the board is responsible for the agenda with my input, and that if something doesn't get on an agenda, or if something's on an agenda that maybe some board members don't want on the agenda, then if 4 of them will make that known to the board chair, then that gets on the agenda. So in this case, if 4 members of our board said we want the name change to come to a vote, we want it on the agenda, then it would show up on the agenda. That just hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. And so I fully support our policies and procedures. Again, I look at some of our policies and procedures and think we need to tighten those things up, some of them, but until we do, it is what it is, and we will follow our policies.
And what are some of the reasons that you've heard that maybe from the board or people in the community against doing a combined name? I think there's some people out there that are asking, well, why not? And is there an answer to why not?
Sure. I would begin with this. When you say that building on 31st and Kelly, the name of that building is Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast, that is a combined name. What I committed to early on was that let's figure out a way to incorporate the word Northeast into that name. If you will look back at my pathway proposals when we narrowed down to 3 and then again to 1, prominently displayed in a slide, it says Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast. So you have some disagreement on should Northeast go in front of the name, should it go after the name, should it be instead of at Northeast, should it be Northeast Campus? We had lots of input through survey, through meetings, through emails, catching me at ball games and at Walmart, lots and lots of input. It was not unanimous. So at some point, as we move down the path, I have to make a recommendation. And my recommendation was Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast. The reason it was is because my directive when I came on board very early on through a guiding principle in Pathway to Greatness was that we take schools that are working, particularly our application schools, and we expand them. We knew that Classen was a successful program, but they had a waiting list. They needed more room, and so one of the things I looked at was how do we create more room? Well, we split it into a middle school and a high school campus. Well, when you take that successful program and all you're doing is making 2 campuses from 1, my opinion was the name should stay intact. The idea that we were going to then incorporate Northeast came from feedback from the community, particularly Northeast alumni, is how can you, their word, how can you merge 2 schools and not incorporate the word Northeast? Mm-hmm. Many of them said put it in front, Northeast Classen. Some of them said, no, put it at the end. And so I said, based upon the guiding principle, we're splitting a campus, I felt like the right thing to do, and my recommendation was that we call it Class and School of Advanced Studies, High School at Northeast. That went before the board, and unanimously they approved that. So that's where we are today.
Okay. And so with Classen and some of what we've seen in the images above, that Northeast will be below Classen SAS
Right.
High School, and one particular board member took issue with that. Charles Henry said that putting Northeast below Classen SAS is, he said it was reminiscent of slavery, and
Yeah,
that
he did.
renaming the school was classic racism. The board meeting that he said that at ended abruptly. A lot of board members and yourself didn't get the opportunity to respond. So I
Right.
wanted to ask you, did you have any response to some of those comments that he made?
You know, I've learned a lot over the years, particularly in the last year and a half, about how to try and see different issues from different points of view. I have coffee with some newfound friends who are African American, who are Latino, because I'm trying to learn. When I see something, it means something to me. I want to know when you see something from a different perspective, what does it mean to you? And so I heard him. I don't see things the way Mr. Henry sees things, obviously. I can't. But I disagree with him in that instance. And I can do that. And you know, my hope is that someday soon we are able to civilly disagree. That because I disagree with somebody, or they don't see it the way I see it, or they're mad at me because they wanted to do something different, that it doesn't immediately turn into a race issue. Now with that said, again, I can't feel his feelings. I just happen to disagree. The lettering on the side of the building, on the signage, to me is representative of what that school is. It's all of what is Classen, and it is a respect and an acknowledgement of the history and the contributions of Northeast High School. That's what it is to me.
Right, right. And how long, just to remind me again, how long has the district been developing these ideas for these legacy projects?
Within my first month of employment, so back in June, July, a year ago, when we began having the conversations about the what ifs. Okay, nothing was determined for some time, but we started talking about, okay, you've got some schools that if this plays out like we think it's going to, some schools are going to close. We've got to be very thoughtful about those schools. And every school carries a level or an amount of tradition, of history, and we've got to be very thoughtful. So originally we started talking low level about what are we going to do. As we moved into really getting the data and making decisions about which schools are going to close, which schools are going to appear on that repurposed list, and which schools are kind of in that other list, which is what Northeast Academy ended up being in, we started talking very quickly about this can't just be a flip of the switch and move a school in and that's it. We've got to talk about things like legacy rooms and how do we honor. And even in my meetings with the Alumni Association, there was a meeting that lasted, I just happen to know this because I've watched it multiple times, 2 hours and 9 minutes that I spent with about 40, 50, 60 alumni. And in that meeting, we talked about the name and we talked about how do we incorporate Northeast. And I was asked multiple times, what do you think? What do you think the name ought to be? And I very clearly said, my recommendation will be that it's Classen School of Advanced Studies. And I said, how we incorporate Northeast into the name remains to be seen. Here's something that I wish I could do over. I have told my board this. They've evaluated me on this particular thing. We talk about this as a team, as a cabinet, is I've got to do a better job of communicating what's in my head. I watched this 2 hour and 9 minute video, and at least 5 times I say, in response to a question or just in my narrative, the name of this school, this was hosted over at Northeast Academy at the time, the name of this school will be Class and School of Advanced Studies. How we incorporate the name remains to be seen. But then later in the video, somebody asks something about the name, and I put my hands up and I say, well, that's the name is the $10,000 question. What the name is going to be is the $10,000 question. Well, if you just take that, okay, well, I thought he just said 5 times it was going to be Class and SAS. Now he's saying that I don't know what the name's going to be.
That it's up in the air.
Yes, and so in context of the 2-hour and 9-minute video, you get it, but nobody's going to go watch a 2-hour and 9-minute video probably. They're going to take pieces and say, see right here, so point being, I wished I would have been more concise, more clear than I was. I wish I had that to do over. But that does not, in my opinion, does not constitute discrimination or racism or white supremacy, all these things that have been attributed to me and to our board over the last several weeks. It simply means that in that instance, I did a poor job of communicating. I need to do better because I think that in part has caused some of the dust up. And I have committed to my board and to my teammates that I'm going to do a better job. I've got to do a better job of communicating.
And as you've developed these ideas and created the plans for these legacy projects, what prevented the district from having these ready by the first day of school?
Well, that's a great question. Probably the initial lack of buy-in from the leadership of the Alumni Association. I pulled in the leadership, the president, the vice president, and pitched the images that you have seen, and they were not interested in those images. They were interested in one thing, and that was changing the name to Northeast Classen. And so I put that on hold because I needed to have buy-in. Then over the next several weeks, I started getting the buy-in again. We had lots of alumni from Northeast High School, Northeast Academy, members of the community, and even, the greater Oklahoma City area say, hey, we've heard about this stuff. Can we be a part of that? And so we have lots of interest now from alumni, from parents, from current and former faculty and staff members. So we're going to be able to put 3 committees together pretty easily. But I think that was a big part of it, is I wanted to respect the leadership of the association, and they told me very clearly, we are not interested in any of this. We want one thing, and that's the name change. So that drug it out a little bit. And again, regrettable. If I knew then what I know now, we would have accelerated those things.
So now that the wheels start to be churning again,
right.
When would you like to have these projects finished?
Yesterday. I mean, I think it's important that we get these things done. To give the process adequate time, I don't want to rush it. Certainly before Christmas break. I think all of these things can be in place, and that's what we're shooting for. And any further on this side of Christmas break would be advantageous. And we think we can do that, but I want to be fair to the process. So I think within the next, this is September already. So 3 months, I think we can have this nailed down.
And I'm curious about the Class and SAS side of things.
Right.
What's been the response from them? Have they also been open to these legacy project ideas?
They have. I've spoken to a number of alumni, boosters, the faculty, or the administration, particularly at Class and SAS High School at Northeast, and they're very open to these things. They acknowledge and affirm the same thing, that Northeast High School and Northeast Academy, to a lesser degree because of the years, have made a permanent imprint on our community, on the state of Oklahoma. And so whether you're a longtime class and parent or alumni, you see that. Or whether you're a brand new administrator, you see that. And so there has been excitement about moving these things forward. So we're happy about that. I think the good news is, this is kind of the interesting part, all of what we're talking about, really, these are adult issues. If you're to walk through the halls, which I have over at Classen SAS High School at Northeast, if you're to walk the halls, kids are going to school, they're happy, they're learning, teachers are teaching. One of the things that I know was a big concern early on was, and this was part of that narrative that I referred to, is that we're going to have a bunch of kids who went to Northeast Academy last year, and they're going to be isolated in this huge building. And that's not the case. Those kids that went to Northeast Academy last year are sharing the same elective teachers. Now they're in different programs potentially, but they're health sciences, the IB track, the visual performing arts track. They may be in different tracks or programs, but they share teachers. It's a high school. These are Classen kids, and they're happy. And so, if we can just solve our adult issues, I think it's going to be better for everybody, and I'm hopeful that we can do that.
Yeah, I'm curious what this transition means for those kids who were at Northeast, who merged with the Classen SAS student body. When they graduate, will they have Northeast on their diplomas, or will it be a Classen SAS diploma?
Another great question. We've taken that question. It will say Classen School of Advanced Studies High School at Northeast. That's their transcript. These are students who go to that school right now, and that's what their transcript will say.
All right. Well, before I wrap things up, is there anything that maybe we haven't covered yet? Any lasting thoughts that you had?
I do want to say this, that we see through the media, and whether it's social media or the television, we hear little bits and pieces of chatter about the way things are. And I've got to give a shout out to our Board of Education. I call this the Bobby Knight syndrome. Bobby Knight, great basketball coach at Indiana for a long time. If you follow anybody around for several years or even a year and video them 24/7 every day for a year, and then you create a 60-minute documentary based on that year's worth of tape, you can tell whatever story you want to tell. And unfortunately, many times the story of our board has been some of the dysfunction, some of the where they get a little heated one toward another. The fact of the matter is, I have never been associated with a board like this from a very positive standpoint. They have taken on significant challenges, whether it's reinvention, an equity initiative where they don't say we're going to have policy. They say we're going to have policy, we're going to follow it up with a comprehensive plan, and then we're going to bring in an Office of Equity and Accountability and Innovation to our district, one of the first of its kind in the U.S. at the high school level. They have taken on every initiative, Embrace OKC, protecting our kids' mental health. They have taken on every initiative, and they've stood there and taken a lot of heat. But everything they've done, at least I can speak to my 16 months, everything they've done is with the best interest of kids and families at heart. And I want to applaud them for that. It's been some tough rolling here because of what we have seen in the media. We've got a board member who is calling out other board members and calling for resignations and calling people racist. That's making the news. But our Board of Education as a unit is advancing the school district, and I think that needs to be acknowledged and affirmed, and I could not be more proud of the efforts of our board as a whole. So I wanted to make sure that I said that.
All right. Well, Sean, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure.
From the Oklahoma Newsroom, I'm Nuri Martinez-Keel. Thanks so much.